These are the VLV awards for excellence in content and broadcasting, particularly public service broadcasting. And as ever, there's been a rich range of programmes that our members have had to vote for this year. And it's a process which we greatly enjoy. But just a quick word about our sponsors, our supporters. It's the Broadcast 2040 Plus Coalition. Bit of background, you may or may not know that the current method of broadcasting using spectrum, broadcasting as we understand it, is only guaranteed up to 2034. We don't think that's sufficient. The consortium of like-minded organisations doesn't think that's sufficient either. It's really important that particularly those audiences, possibly older audiences, more remote audiences, who absolutely rely on terrestrial television, that is guaranteed well into the future, and that those people are not forced to pay more by going on broadband or whatever else. So it's a really important activity. And we work, as I say, with a coalition of partners to try to ensure that the government, who've made some helpful comments, but we'd like those comments to be written into something a bit more specific than just helpful comments. So that's what that consortium is all about, and we appreciate your support in that way. So now turning to the event for the next 45 minutes, it is the awards. And all I have to do is hand over to the two people who will be managing the process, Lewis Rudd of the VLV and Helen Boaden, who was chairing the last session. But for those of you, I'm pretty sure everybody from the BBC knows who Helen is, but of course she was Chief Executive of News, Chief Executive of Radio, etc., etc.
Director, actually.
Oh, Director. That was before you had grade inflation, was it?
Yeah, that was grade inflation. Actually, that is true. The latest Director of News is called a Chief Executive. Thank you. So I think these are really special awards. I think I got one once for editing File on 4, because they're chosen by people who not professionally employed in the media, but have shown really by their membership of the VLV their equipment to quality broadcasting. The awards are based on nominations from this membership who really watch and also listen. This is a membership that loves radio, or as we now call it, audio. And it's their enthusiasm and breadth of interest is demonstrated by the sheer number of different programmes suggested this year. So 134 in the television category and 147 in audio. And there were 90 nominations for individual contributors. It's the VLV's 31st year of these awards. And in an ever-changing media landscape where even the word broadcast is obviously challenged by podcasts and streaming, what still matters is quality and content. And that's what these awards really are all about.
Thanks, Helen.
Helen Boaden to me, aren't you, Lewis? Fire away.
I'll think about that one. We start with the television awards, and the first one is for Best TV Drama Programme. Nominations were Sherwood, BBC One, Shetland, BBC One, The Great, Channel 4, The Responder, BBC One, This Is Going to Hurt, BBC One, Trigger Point, ITV One.
The winner, based on the writer Adam Kay's experiences as a junior hospital doctor in the mid-noughties, seemed contemporary in the realism of the drama and the exhaustion in a maternity ward. A real-life practicing hospital midwife described it as hilarious and heartbreaking, and a reminder of the human emotions behind every tired, scared, and fallible healthcare professional. It is, of course, going to This Is Going to Hurt, and Naomi De Pere, the executive producer of the series from Sister, is here to collect the award.
On behalf of my fellow producers, I'm not going to thank every single person involved, as they all knew who they were and they were brilliant, but I just wanted to say something else. They set out, we all did, with a united aim to make a love story to the NHS. There are 1.5 million people working in the NHS, and some of them gave their lives for the rest of us during COVID. They are there looking out for us throughout our lives, at the beginning, at the end, and at a lot of the joyful, sad, and embarrassing bits in between. They should be respected, paid properly, and cared for. These incredible institutions, the NHS, the BBC and Channel 4, are the jewels in the crown of this country, and we can't begin to imagine how much we would miss them if they were gone.
Next up is Best TV News and Factual Programme, and the nominations were Channel 4 News, coverage of the death and funeral of Her Majesty the Queen, BBC, Great Scenic Rail Journeys of the World, Channel 5, Navalny, BBC 2, Rise of the Nazis, BBC 2, The Andrew Neil Show, Channel 4.
This award pays tribute to the enduring importance of corporate and inherited skills in an ever more fragmented media world. The need to reflect the mood of a nation at a time of an historic event is a really big challenge and has many pitfalls. And in September last year, the BBC rose to this with distinction and grace. The award goes to the coverage of the death and funeral of the Queen, and here to receive the award are a crack team themselves, series producer Catherine Stirk, together with BBC Studios Head of Production and Deputy Head Harriet Dormer and Gemma Thompson, and the Creative Director, the irreplaceable Claire Popplewell. I'll have a little one. Don't they look lovely in their best dresses?
Oh. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. This really does mean a great deal. There were hundreds of people involved in the BBC's broadcast of Her Majesty's funeral, and I think the pressure on everybody was immense. But what was lovely is from everybody, our runners, our researchers, our riggers, our production management, producers, cameramen, sound, everybody cared so much. And I think everybody was aware that the only sort of standard that would suffice was perfection for such a remarkable lady. It was a privilege, it really was, but I'll be really honest, it's quite a lot of relief that went on when we actually got it right. But also a huge sense of pride. So thank you very much. It's appreciated.
Next award is for Best TV Arts and Entertainment Programme, and the nominations were My Life as a Rolling Stone, BBC 2, Portrait Artist of the Year, Sky Arts, The Graham Norton Show, BBC 1, The Repair Shop, BBC 1, T.S. Eliot, Into the Wasteland, BBC 2, Winter Journey, Schubert's Winterreise, BBC 4.
The winner started in 2017 as a half-hour daytime television programme whose makers thought there might be an audience for watching treasured possessions being lovingly repaired and restored. Such was the response that within 3 years the running time had doubled to an hour and transmission had moved to peak time with audiences approaching 7 million. And with over 200 programmes by the end of 22, there was clearly no lack of candidates needed repairing. It is The Repair Shop, and to receive the award are the executive producers Joanna Ball, managing director of Ricochet Production Executive Emily Senior, production manager Hannah James, upholsterer Sunas Naranvere, and conservator Lucia Scalisi. Can you come to the stage, please? We'll do a little picture. Gather together. Such a clever programme. Brilliant. Who wants to say a few words?
I thought Lucia was going to say something. Lucia is our wonderful art restoration expert. We are so grateful and so proud to receive this award. As Helen said, we were a little daytime programme, and we are evidence of what a wonderful broadcaster the BBC is, and how I don't think anybody else would have commissioned such a programme and believed that it would find an audience, but the BBC did, and we're so happy to be part of the BBC. So thank you very much.
Before I come to the next one, I've just been handed a note from Colin saying that he should have asked that all winners stay for photos in the library afterwards.
That's like being told to stay behind for detention, isn't it?
It could have been something much worse that he'd handed me. I thought it was this thing saying you are drunk and sit down immediately. The next award is for Best TV Individual Contributor, and the nominations were Jeremy Bowen, Hugh Edwards, Martin Lewis, Robert Peston, Steve Rosenberg, and Mariana Spring.
Which is a formidable list when you think about it. The winner is well known as a pianist, which he's demonstrated by playing excerpts from every Eurovision winner as part of the coverage of the event. I also heard him play the piano recently at George Alagai's memorial service. But he combines it with the day job when he accompanied Mikhail Gorbachev as he sang Moscow Nights, saying that in those 10 musical minutes, I learned more about Gorbachev the man than in a 45-minute political interview. In over a quarter of a century working for the BBC in Russia, he's confronted Putin on the poisoning of the Skripals in Salisbury and got Lukashenko to admit that Belarus might have helped migrants to enter the EU. His colleague Lise Doucette says, "You never pull your punches, and that's truly courageous in Russia." He is, of course, Steve Rosenberg, and unsurprisingly, he's not actually able to join us in person, but he has sent this message.
Hello from Moscow, everybody. First of all, a huge, huge thank you. It is such an honour for me to receive this Voice of the Listener and Viewer Award. I'm only sorry that I can't be with you in London today to receive it in person. You know, people often ask me, what is it like being in Russia right now? To be honest, it feels like being in a very strange bubble, in a very odd world of alternative reality. And it feels a long way from home. So it's great to know that back home, people have been watching and reading and listening to the reports I've been making. But I couldn't make those reports without the fantastic and truly dedicated team that I work with in the BBC Moscow Bureau. So a huge thank you to them too. You know, doing journalism in Russia right now is pretty challenging. It's not without risks, but I believe it's important for me to be here as long as it's possible to be here, so that I can try to explain what on earth is going on, what Russians are thinking, why they're thinking it, and how on earth this remarkable country, which I'd come to love over 30 years, has taken such a dark path. Thank you again.
So we now turn to the first of the audio awards for the Best Drama Programme of the Year. The final nominations were Churchill versus Reith, Radio 4, Keeping the Wolf Out, Radio 4, People Everywhere Will Sing, Radio 3, Separate Tables, Radio 4, The Dark is Rising, World Service, and The Signalman, Radio 3.
And the winner, although the action takes place in 1926, was a very timely play about the relations of the BBC with the government. There's a truth. It deals with when the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Winston Churchill, attempted to make the fledgling BBC a government mouthpiece during the general strike and clashed with the Director General, John Reith. As Mike Harris, the writer, noted in his introduction to the play, these were two titans of 20th century British history. They hated each other after 1926. Which was the winner, then, you can judge from the play, but the winner today is Churchill versus Reith. And here to receive the award is the writer Mike Harris, together with producer Gary Brown and the production coordinator Pippa Day. Are you going to say a few words?
Well, thank you very much. It's actually a Radio 3 production. Hooray! Last time I won an award, I forgot to say it was Radio 3, to thank Radio 3. So I've done it now. So basically, this is about the government trying to control the BBC. Thank God it hasn't happened again.
Yes, exactly.
But when we first mooted the idea for the 100th anniversary of the BBC, the one thing that I didn't want to do was to do a sort of dusty and dry piece. So it's actually very funny. And that's down to the writer, Mike Harris, who did a fantastic job on it. So, and we had a fantastic cast as well. So, and of course, a team led by Pippa as well. So thank you very much. Thank you.
The next audio award is for Best Comedy, and the nominations were I'm Sorry I Haven't a Clue, Radio 4, It's a Fair Cop, Radio 4. These are all Radio 4, kind of think of it.
They don't do that much comedy on Radio 3.
Meet David Sedaris. Natalie Haynes stands up for the classics, the news quiz, the skewer.
So appropriately, but actually genuinely coincidentally, the winner celebrated 50 years on air in 2022. One participant noted there's no points being made or targets being attacked, and an early promotional leaflet promised thrills, spills, and anticlimax. It was chaired for 36 years by Humphrey Littleton, and his successor, Jack Dee, has been in post for an unbelievable 15 years and counting. It is, of course, I'm Sorry I Haven't a Clue. And one panellist has been taking part right from the outset. He's Graham Garden. He's over there. He's a legend in comedy, as is the producer, John Naismith. And I'm delighted that Julia Mackenzie, the commissioning editor, is always here. Please come up and get your award.
I was going to, yes. Well, when I devised this programme 50 years ago, which was really a way of doing, I'm sorry, I'll read that again, without the bother of writing a script. Little did I think I'd be here 50 years later accepting this wonderful prize. And I do so, of course, on behalf of the hundreds of people over the years who've worked on the show. Our absent friends, of course, Humph, Willie, Tim and Barry. And Jack Dee is now in the chair, has very much made it his own. Colin Sellers still at the piano, being insulted. And we now have a whole host of wonderful comedians who parade through the teams and keep the show very much alive. And of course, I would like to thank you on behalf of the producers. We've had quite a few who have kept the show going, and in particular John Naismith, who for the last 20-odd years has worked tirelessly to make sure that every show is as funny as it possibly can be. I'm kind of retiring from the panel now, but there are some wonderful people, as you know, you will know when you hear this next series, which is a cracker. So on behalf of everybody, thank you very much indeed for this wonderful prize. It will be treasured. Thank you.
Some of the rudest things you'll ever hear on any broadcasting still go out on that programme.
Next we come to Best News and Factual Programme. Final nominations were Archive on 4, Radio 4, Political Thinking, Radio 4, Putin, Radio 4, The Coming Storm, Radio 4, The Forum, World Service, Understand the Economy, Radio 4.
The surprise about the next winner that it's only been on air for a mere 25 years, given that it's such a rich and unique source of fascinating history. Subjects in 2022 included Disgusted Mary Whitehouse, Kissinger's Century, and perhaps unsurprisingly, one entitled 50 Years Without a Clue. Over to you guys. Presenters have ranged from Frank Cottrell Boyce to Steve Punt and Maureen Lipman to Peter Taylor. It's Archive on 4, and here to collect the award are BBC Commissioning Editor Dan Clark, together with BBC Commissioning Editor Tracy Williams, Falling Trees Productions Alan Hall, and Head of Audio Jack Howsam from Peanut and Crumb, who have both produced cracking editions from their companies. Can you come up and get your award?
You hold it, Tracy.
Tracy, you hold it. There we go. Do the picture, and then we'll do the... Brilliant. Who's going to say a few words?
I'm just going to say a couple of things. This is incredibly exciting. Archive on 4 doesn't always get recognised, even though it's been around for 25 years. So it means a huge amount to us. The thing about Archive on 4 is it's our only hour-long documentary strand, and because of the duration and the fact that it has the freedom to explore almost infinite array of subjects, it takes the listener on a different journey to everything else on the network. You know, one week it's the history of ice cream. Alan made a show recently. Scoop was the title. The next it might be the life of Jimi Hendrix, which Jack made. Once we told Donald Trump's political career backwards, we might have to return to that. And we do a huge range of things on there, so it's brilliant for it to be recognised. And the unique thing about it is that it's not actually made by one production department or one independent production company. The slot is open to the whole production community. So every programme is made by a different producer from a different place. And that is what really gives it its unique quality. Every programme is a labour of love. So I would love to dedicate this award to the makers of this wonderful strand, the producers up and down the country who make it for us. Thank you.
Bravo.
Thank you.
So now for the Best Music and Arts programme. Final nominations were Add to Playlist, Radio 4, Breakfast, Radio 3, Choral Evensong, Radio 3, Open Book, Radio 4, The Essay, Radio 3, The Listening Service, Radio 3.
The winner is the BBC's longest-running outside broadcast, being heard every Wednesday at 4 o'clock since it was first broadcast from Westminster Abbey in October 1926. There was an attempt in 1970 to limit it to once a month, but a flurry of complaints meant it was promptly reinstated weekly. It is, of course, Choral Evensong, and the award will be received by lead producer Ben Collingwood and production coordinator Helen Surtees, together with the head of BBC Religion and Ethics, Pemberton, and head of Content Commissioning Radio 3, Jeremy Evans. From the north, I know. Who's going to say something? You're going to say something, Tim.
Well, wow. This is fantastic. First of all, thank you very much, VLV, for the award. We really appreciate it. And just want to pay tribute to Ben Collingwood, who's the producer, for whom this isn't just a job, it's really a calling. It's a vocation for him. And also Helen Surtees, who just supports him ably and brilliantly. And always thank you to the commissioners, Radio 3, who have commissioned us regularly, which is really good. And I just want to say, I say to the team that this is one of the best programs on the radio. And if you haven't come across it yet, I listened to it in the bath. That's an image that they've tried to scrub from their minds totally. But it is so fantastic as a calming, relaxing sort of radio event, and yet actually it's theatre and it's also brilliant music, and it also is spiritual at the same time. So if you haven't listened, I urge you to give it a go. And 4 o'clock this afternoon, and on BBC Sounds. But we're so grateful, and we thank you so much. Thank you.
Tim's absolutely right, because I know we have these meditation music mixtapes now on BBC Sounds, but Choral Evensong just gives it all to you, whether you want it or not. It's fantastic.
The final award voted by members is for Best Individual Contributor to Audio. Nominations were Evan Davis, James O'Brien, Paddy O'Connell, Caroline Quinn, Amal Rajan, Sarah Rainsford.
Although the winner's career has straddled both TV and radio, he does say one of the best things about presenting on radio is that you can look things up on Wikipedia while on air. He presented Today for 7 years, and after a stint at Newsnight has presented PM brilliantly for the last 5 years, which he describes as presenter heaven, alongside with returning to his roots as an economist with his business programme, the equally brilliant The Bottom Line. He is Evan Davis, and he's here to collect his award.
Thank you so much, and we normally assume Amal Rajan gets these things, so it's particularly nice. So thank you, VLV, such talent at the BBC and beyond. Indeed, on our floor at the BBC. I also want to thank VLV for sticking with broadcasting. You know, as management, quite understandably, have to worry about TikTok and Instagram. It's so nice to know there is a core of people listening, appreciating, complaining sometimes, engaging, let's call it, engaging with broadcasting. So thank you for all that you do. Look, I really mainly need to talk to you about our team, though. The teams, both on The Bottom Line and also at PM. I mean, we've Natasha, our editor, Matt, our deputy editor, who are both there. They're terrific journalistic judgment, great judgment. It's a family, though. It's a family because it's PM, World at One, and then the Broadcasting House and the World This Weekend too. We're all one big team. And the producers, and we have Isabel, one of them who's been brought here to sort of represent the whole gang. They are awesome. They are universally much younger than I am. And they come with different worldviews, they come with different knowledge, they come with different skills, but all of them are aligned, I find, around the core values of the BBC and the PM programme within the BBC of being fair, of being respectful, and always of being open-minded, which is what I think impartiality is really about, open-mindedness and curiosity. And I have to say, you know, we all screw up. I sometimes go on air and say something stupid and spoil it for them and the work that they have done in getting the programme to air. And then the listeners sometimes will assume from some stupid slip-up that they're seeing deeply into your evil heart and finding out what you truly think about something as opposed to you've just used the wrong word. But I have to say, I have good news for you at a time when the BBC is battered and criticised and suffers some terribly difficult choices, and we're going to hear more about that in the coming hours and days. As the BBC faces all of that, when you look at the actual people on the ground who are doing the work, you can be glad and appreciative that public service broadcasting is in very good hands in the future of it too. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So, before we go on with some special awards, there's one extra hangover from the COVID hiatus.
That's a very unpleasant way of putting it, isn't it?
I don't know who writes this stuff.
So, Conversations from a Long Marriage, which, if you've not heard, is brilliant, was voted Best Radio Comedy back in 2020. And here is the writer Jan Etherington and the producer Claire Jones to belatedly receive this very well-deserved award. Don't they?
I'm not sure that I appreciate it being a hiatus.
I know, I hate it.
From the COVID.
I don't think it's Lewis's fault.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you. And I just want to say how right Helen is about this is the award everyone wants to win, because it's voted for by people who are listening and watching the media that we all work in, and it's not sort of a committee and panel thing, which I think is so super, and I'm so thrilled. We waited a long time for this. Anyway, it's here. I'd got a certificate. I thought, that's not fair. Anyway, it wasn't. But I just wanted to tell you why I decided to write Conversations from a Long Marriage. I was so horrified by the portrayal of older women on television and radio and every form of media. They were either in a coma or a care home, probably both, or they were the bitchy ex-wife or the tetchy divorcee, or they were the helmet-haired, thin-lipped boss of the family business, or they were the nana with a ditzy nana who doesn't know anything about technology being patronised by everyone. I thought, where are all these women I know and love? The women who are still working, still engaged, still busy, still sociable and funny and lovely, still dancing in the street and still singing in the car, and maybe still married to that sexy hippie they met at Glastonbury 71. And where would I find somebody to portray that? And where would I find somebody to sell the idea of two senior rail card holders who were still passionate about music, wine, life, and each other? Well, obviously, Joanna Lumley and Roger Allam were the two superstars that I wanted, and fortunately they both said yes. And half the internet thinks they're married already, which is fantastic. And so who helped me take it there? Well, Claire Jones, producer Claire, and I went through the labyrinth of the BBC, guided by Claire, and we took it initially to Sinead William, who many of you remember, and now the wonderful Julia Mackenzie is our commissioning head of comedy, who's supported, and also Richard Morris, head of BBC Studios, who's taken us through 4 series now on BBC Sounds, a 5th series I've just written, and Claire's about to produce in the recording studio of glamorous downtown Acton in January. We can't do it earlier because Roger Allam is prancing around the West End with Ian McKellen, as you probably know. But we're going to do that, and you know, it's really the show that keeps on giving. I know showing off isn't very seemly, but I'm so proud of this show. And I'm so proud of the BBC for supporting an idea of an older couple who are still in love with life and still full of passion. And so, sorry. But thank you so much for the award, and thank you so much to Claire, and thank you so much to Julia, and every one of the people who voted for it and listens to it and tells me how much they love it. Thank you so much.
Well, finally, Helen will present the 3 special awards selected by the trustees.
The first of these affirms VLV's long-standing support for an area described as the canary in the mine for public service broadcasting. It's for the best contribution to children's broadcasting and goes to the Children's Media Foundation. The CMF evolved from the Children's Film Foundation, originally formed to provide British children's films for Saturday morning cinema. VLV has worked closely with it since Anna Home took over as chair and converted its role to support all British children's media. Its campaigning was instrumental in the creation of the Young Audiences Content Fund, which was able to kickstart a number of children's and young people's programmes. It's currently scrutinising the impact of the new media bill and planning a kids' TV summit to deal with the decline in home-produced content for children. Here to collect the award are CMF Chair Anna Home, CMF Director Greg Childs, and CMF Board and Exec Group Member Alison Stewart. And Emma's hurdling days are over, so we're standing down here so she doesn't have to do the step.
Thank you.
Shall we do the picture first, and then you might
Yes.
like to say a few words?
I shall.
Would you like to hold this, because it's not mine?
Thank you.
Is the mic on? 1, 2. Yeah.
Thank you. I think I can be heard without it, but never mind. I'm delighted to accept this award on behalf of the Children's Media Foundation. The members of our board, our director, Greg Childs, our supporters, and our volunteers. And our volunteers especially, because without them we would be unable to carry on the wide range of activities supporting and fighting for the best possible media for children and young people. Thank you, VLV. We really, really will treasure this award. It means a lot to us.
Next, we come to the Naomi Sargent Award, which commemorates a distinguished broadcaster and good friend of VLV, who was Channel 4's first Commissioner of Education. She would have appreciated how the trustees' choice of recipient, the Martin Lewis Money Show, has increased citizens' financial literacy to the widest possible audience in peak time on ITV1. This is felt by the trustees to be particularly valuable at a time when the cost of living crisis is having such a significant impact on people's lives. Now, funnily enough, Martin can't be here to receive the award, as he's currently dispensing advice on Radio 5 Live. But he has sent this message.
Hi folks, so sorry I can't be there with you in person to pick up the award. I'm delighted to get the VLV award for the best educational programme.
Well done.
Very happy, aren't we? I'm actually live on air at Radio 5 at the time you're doing that. But it is absolutely important to remember that we're a prime-time show, current affairs, but yes, it's about education. Who would have thought we got ratings like this for what's a PowerPoint presentation and a Q&A? Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And here to collect the actual award are his colleagues from the programme, series editor Claire Miller, senior producer Daniel Harris, and production coordinator Rebecca Harris, together with Mike Blair, head of documentaries at Multistory Media. There we go. Pose for the picture. Not too many tall boys.
Thank you so much.
A few words? Oh, we've had a few words from him. But
We've had a few words from us, and he says it best. But to work on this show is like standing on a volcano in a hurricane, juggling. But what I will say is the team behind it work incredibly hard to make a show that translates and is tangible in a time there is chaos. And Martin is probably an example of someone who cares so very much and to get the information across a very, very difficult time. And I know he's very sad not to be here, but I promise I will deliver this to him as soon as I can. So thank you very much.
The trustees' final award is a special one in recognition of a unique contribution to public service broadcasting. After a distinguished career as a foreign correspondent for ITN, he became the lead anchor of Channel 4 News, a role he filled for 32 years. He never allowed himself to become studio-bound, regularly presenting the programme from crisis locations ranging from Haiti to the Middle East. He is famous for his cycling, his socks and his ties, and also for turning down an OBE. And we are delighted that he's agreed to accept today's award. He is, of course, John Snow. Now, unfortunately, John isn't well today, so Stuart Purvis, an old friend of his former colleague at ITM, has agreed to collect the award on his behalf. Well done, my dear. It's such a pleasure. We'll do a little snap for him.
Thank you, Helen. John is very, very disappointed not to be able to be here today. It was late notice, and that's why there isn't a video, for instance, because we'd expected him here. Because it is a contribution to public service broadcasting. John absolutely believed and still believes in public service broadcasting, and that's what he's done for 50 years, basically. And he therefore sends you, everyone at the VLV, his best wishes, and my first job is to take this back to him afterwards. But I must just say a couple of things, if you're wondering quite what I'm doing here. I should explain that it is actually the 50th anniversary of John becoming a broadcaster, which is a wonderful choice by the VLV. And he, during various times in those 50 years, I was at times his producer, in places of Nicaragua, El Salvador, Poland, places like that. I was his editor. I then became his chief executive, and then in a bizarre period, I was even his regulator. And I have to say that in that time, I came to the conclusion that John Snow was the best television reporter I ever worked with. And I know that many people who worked with him would agree with that. He was also the most awkward sod I ever managed. And if you think about it, all the qualities we want from our reporters, challenging, holding people to account, the last thing you want them to do is to do it to their own bosses. And there's one other thing I would add about John. He's still making the occasional documentary. He still has an amazing body of work. He's written some wonderful books. But one lasting legacy is his inspiration to young journalists. For a time, I taught at City University, and I persuaded him to cycle around the corner from ITN, and he would emerge in secret almost. I never told the students he was coming. And then suddenly, in the middle of one of my boring lectures, the door would open and John Snow would walk in his cycling kit. The wow in the room was unbelievable. So John's work continues as his aide, but actually he has inspired a whole generation of young journalists, and that's an even greater legacy. So thank you to the VLV on his behalf.
Thank you.